Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Tutors, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I do continue to pray that each and every day, each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, and the wisdom from the universe. And with that said, my dear friends, this is sort of a follow up on yesterday's video what that I did about the Muppets and whoever is behind whatever it is that they and whoever they are. Um, it's announced yet late yesterday and today that Harry Shearer. Um, I've been a longtime fan of Harry Shearer's work, and he was in This is Spinal Tap. Hey, Miss Jones, how are you? Uncle Hawkeye, I love it. Cheers to you, baby. How's your sores doing? You doing better today? I'm sending a prayer for that. But so last night in my discussion, little did I know that Harry Shearer was going to be like next on the list. And he was in Spinal Tap. Him and his friends got together that were in Spinal Tap, and I can't remember their names, but I just decided to do a quick follow up on this. But um, here's the thing. He's done many different characters on many different shows and other movies and things. Him and his wife played music together. I'm not sure if his wife is still around. Hey, Project, how are you, Bapooey? That's easy for you to say. It's almost 11:20, so I thought I'd get on here and say it's 4:20 somewhere. I'm moving around. I'm a tough one. I know you are, Miss Delaney. I can just tell. You're kind of tough like I am. I've taken a beating, but I still get up. Today's been a little slow in getting up, but um, I've had a couple of busy days the last few days, so it's like, at my age, I just have to put up with it. But Harry Shearer, he's getting nailed because he does a black voice on The Simpsons, which he's been doing for a long, long time. Yeah, we are. Were you born in 52? Hey, Elderberry, how you doing? Now, Miss Delaney, do you think that Harry Shearer should have been fired because they need a black person to do the voice that he's been doing for the last 30 years? I mean, is this like just insanity? Now, I'm all for, you know, whoever is qualified to do it, but it's behind a microphone, you know. These voice actors, I've done a lot of voice acting myself with the puppets and storytelling. I made a few CDs back in the day. I was even commissioned by Phoebe Putney Hospital up in Albany to do a children's program, and all that was taped and had music behind it and music bed and everything. And so I've done that kind of work myself, and it's only within the last few years after my accident that I haven't done that. And I'm trying my best to get back in there. My office is clean. I can get in there now. So, but anyway, we'll see how things go. I'm hoping for the best. I've got my fingers crossed on that one. Um, but the idea, though, I mean, I think Harry also did Abu, which is an Indian character, Pakistani, and no offense to either one, but um, the idea, though, that they didn't fire him because he was doing voices of other nationalities. They fired him because he was doing the voice of a black man. Who remembered when Dan Aykroyd was in blackface and Trading Places? Absolutely. We have just gone too flippin' far with this stuff. And so last night, in the video, I was like kind of picking on things, but what's next? You know, but then I wake up this morning and go, son of a bitch, Harry Shearer just got canned because he does a voice of a black, Now, I listened to I'm going to try it. It may not be the link to the one I'm suggesting, but I'm going to drop a link to this Sky News. Um, Hang on a second. I want to give you this link to this Sky News in Australia. And I want to drop it in the link. And you can find just, subscribe to them because they do some really good quick updates on things that the folks in the United States just don't do. And this particular video. That we don't know. So I'm going to copy and paste this. This isn't the video I want. Control C, and then Control V. Now, this one's a political video, but it gets you to, I can't remember their name. Every time I look at it, I forget it as quick as I look at it. Sky News Australia. That's who they are. And they have got some really good, hi, Teresa. They've got some really good perspective on things. And we talk openly about it, not like, what's going on over here in the UK kind of sort of thing. It's like an RT, but it's in Australia. So, but anyway, I was watching earlier today, they were discussing Harry Shearer, and they said, isn't it ironic that the character of Bart Simpson, who's a boy, is actually a woman who's been doing the character. Now, is that sexist, racist? Where are we headed with that? How far down this rabbit hole do you want to go? And why? So then the lady commentator, she said, now how ironic this is that they kick Harry Shearer off The Simpsons for doing the black character. And they're doing a remake of one of the queens in this period piece, and they're using a black actress. And I even said something about that in the my video last night, in that I'm all for, there are a lot of good actresses that are both black and white in theater down in Thomasville. I've known quite a few excellent female black actresses, very talented. I have asked one specifically to be in a play with me, and she accepted. She was very good and very gracious, etc. But anyway, a lot of talent, regardless of what nationality you are. So it baffles me because I've worked with people in theater of all different kinds of races, creeds, colors, and all that. I don't get it. So for other people, though, to point in well, these people are bad. Well, I can remember back in the day, one of my puppets sort of had, and it wasn't on purpose, but and it was a white lady. She said, one of my puppets, she said, that sounds like a black person's voice. You're trying to imitate a black person. And I was like, no, I just hear a voice in the back of my head and I try to imitate that voice. That's the voice of the character. And there was a black lady standing there, and she looked at her and she goes, ma'am, I didn't think it was a black voice at all. And the white lady got very indignant and said, come on, children, let's go. And I was like, I looked at the black lady and I said, she goes, no, it was just that's the voice of that character. She goes, it didn't sound like you were trying to imitate a black person. I said, thank you very much. But there's always one in a group somewhere that's just not going to get it, and especially as a performer and with the thousands of people that I've performed to. And I mean, like, and I don't mean up on a big stage, I'm talking about one on one, right? So, but for the idea though that, okay, so, what's next, Edna? Edna's sitting in the kitchen, right? So I'm asking myself, oh, holy crap. So, but the lady on the Australian news, she was like, so they kick Harry off for doing a black voice, but they're going to put a black woman in a period piece about the Queen of England, and they say she was no more black than the man in the moon, but they're putting up this big thing so they can replace a white Queen of England, obviously, with a black woman and say, "Ooh, this is a period piece," and get away with it. She goes, "This is a double standard that has gone too far." And I spoke about it last night, and I go, they're replacing Cinderella is now a black girl, and this one is now a black girl, and this one now is and it's like, hang on, make another story, do something different, but don't try to change history and remake Cinderella or whatever, way back when. These are Nordic traditions. How many people in Norway or Sweden, how many black people were there? Some of those stories go back into into that area. I'm sorry, but they were mostly white people, and that's not to be prejudiced. It's just that's history. So you're going to tell a German folk tale and replace the story with Hansel and Gretel with black kids. What? Now, make another story, do another fable, find something else. But this idea that everything that, quote, has been white, because some of these stories come from a traditionally white part of the world, not from Africa, tell African stories. Use the people of Africa. To me, they're missing a whole bunch of stuff here. Tell the traditional stories of Africa using African people, white and black, or black and white, depending on how you want to look at it. But quit trying to replace the traditional stories. I mean, so is Pocahontas now, instead of an Indian, she's going to be a black woman? I mean, here we go. You're going to replace all these characters with black folk to make who happy? I'm just saying. So I find that pointless when they should be telling new stories and finding other stories that aren't being told from their own traditions, instead of trying to hype up and replace anything that's white on the globe. It's just that is just insanity. you know uh, because I think they're missing the point from their own creativity. I think they're being taken away from what should be traditionally theirs. I mean, I'm sorry. A white person could not play some famous native African woman from the Congo. No, it ain't going to work. Well, we're going to put Michelle Pfeiffer in, and she's the queen of the Mumba. Excuse me, I'm just making this up. But, she's in charge. She's the queen of the Mumbambali tribe or something, but she's the only white person there. Wait a minute, hang on. So consider that reversal. They're putting a black woman in as the Queen of England. No, and they're calling it historically accurate. I'm sorry, we need to just calm this down here. Make up a fairyland and put her as the queen of something, of some fantasy fairyland thing that resembles the Queen of England, okay? But quit trying to replace history and turn it into something else. It makes you look like fools. And I a lot of other people are noticing it, and it just is becoming ridiculous, So, but to my point about replacing all things white, not from a racist point of view, from a storyteller's point of view, you know, Hansel and Gretel would have been white. I'm sorry. Um, you know, anyway, Goldilocks and the Three Bears is an old Nordic kind of tale. Oh, but Goldilocks is now going to be a redhead black girl. I mean, come on. But to the same point, though, why not tell African stories using those actors and actresses? Use that potential that's already there and tell us the stories of the different tribes and how they have moved from maybe being headhunters to something more, or less. There's a lot of strife in Africa. So why aren't stories being told of Africa instead of, them replacing all the old stories? Now, not to saying that Cinderella is that old, but Hans Christian Andersen and all that, come on, um, Grimm's fairy tales and etc. So I think give the black actors and actresses a voice from where their heritage actually came from. You know, get more in touch with Africa and tell those stories because they need to be told and they're not being told. There are ancient Chinese stories being told, big, grand, thousands of, warriors and, all of these armors. And I love watching these movies, because that's the way it was back in those days. So why not show the tribes of Africa and how they have worked in between them? Why? Because they ran around with spears and sticks and didn't have armored but there were still big, huge, bloody battles between the nations in Africa that rivaled any of the massacres and battles in France or England or Rome or whatever. So why aren't they telling these stories? There's a big potential there. I would, uh, I'm trying to think of, there was a British movie where there was a British outpost and the tribes came and were wiping out all the white people. Um, it's an old story, but anyway. But to the point, though, there are many of those stories, and it's just not against the whites; it's against each tribe. Years ago when there was the Tutsi and the Houthis, or and they were just walking down the street and lopping people's heads off with machetes, chopping arms and legs off and just leaving people dead in the streets. What they can show a medieval war, but they can't show what has transpired in the last 20, 30 years in some of these countries. And I think those stories should be told, and they're being hidden. Nobody wants to fund those. You know what I mean? But instead of folks focusing on replacing just traditional stories, they should switch to producing the traditional stories of where their origins actually came from. So I think it would be best suited, right? Because right now it's beginning to look damn stupid, you know. Um, well, Doug, that's great. Intuitive empath, how you doing? And some of the stories that I tell through the Native Americans and stuff, they come from different tribes. They come from the Northwest, they come from the Southwest, and there was more of a white Viking kind of interference, early French and English, way back in the French and Indian Wars. When the fur trading up in Canada and when they came down the St. Lawrence River and so forth, upper New York kind of thing, and up in there. So, um, and the idea, and still the French Canadians, they still, Montreal, I think it is, but to the point though, um, there was a lot of white blood that got intermixed with the native bloods way back then up in the far northeast, and it trickled down into some of the Iroquois. I've met several full-blood Iroquois, and they're just redheaded as the day is long. I mean, seriously, curly redhead. And you're what? Yeah, I'm Iroquois. Yeah, my mother and father both are full-blood, and and like, yeah, red hair runs in our family. From where? I mean, but 300 or 400 years back, there were the Vikings were supposedly had been here a long time ago, and also there used to be evidence that the Egyptians had made it up the Mississippi River, and in certain places around Florida, back when the Earth wasn't had not expanded, and we're going through another Earth turmoil, and good Lord, the news from everybody is we need to hang on, but duck and cover may be in order. Um, but that's always been the case at some point or another here on Earth. But this idea, I've kind of just opened my mind to, like, what are these crazy people up to? Well, they want to whom are they proving what by replacing all these actors and stories? What does that mean? Um, and I mean no offense, but to the population of the United States, a third of the population roughly is Black Americans, and there's Hispanics, and so if it was half and half, I'd be like, okay, but everything is towards the lower classes to please the rest of the world. And I think from the 60s, when I remember the real riots and the tear gas and the beatings and everything, and I think now there's so much opportunity with folks of all races to get ahead. You know, yeah, there's still stumbling blocks here and there, but if you prove yourself, if you're smart, you work hard, and you prove yourself, and you're honorable and respectful, and above all, truthful as much as you can be in circumstances. But this idea that there's all this racism and bigotry and everything, I'm beginning to say, why are they trying to wipe out the white race? I'm just saying, I'm all for the Black culture. I used to go to Albany all the time, a Black a librarian up there. She helped really get me started in the state of Georgia, hired me many times. That Mr. Dave, I need a puppeteer. We got an event. Are you available this date? And blah, blah, blah. She always paid me well, always respectful, always a grand lady, and I always treated her back as such because she deserved it. But with that said, though, so I've played to a lot of Black communities as a white man. With, and somebody asked me one time, they said, "Why don't you have a Black puppet in your group here?" And I said, "Because it wouldn't be fair." And they said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I'm a white man." And I said, "It would not be becoming of me to do a Black character, because then it would seem like I was portraying a Black character, you know." And so I have all these other animal characters and things that relate difference in characters and so forth. But Mexican puppets, okay. But as soon as I tried to do a Black puppet, I realized that was one place I could not go. Just I can't do it because somebody would be offended. And like I said earlier on, the Black lady, I mean, the white lady was thought I was doing a Black man's voice. And the Black lady standing there going, I didn't hear it. I just thought it was his character. I'm not offended. And so, but I always knew where to draw the line as well in that respect. So you have respect and honor to those people. But, Harry Shearer is behind a microphone, and he wasn't trying to be a Black person. He was giving a voice to a Black character, which is so much different. So I think it's eroding us in a way that we just really shouldn't go. Now, if Harry Shearer and they wanted to hire another voice or something or whatever, that's totally different. But to fire a person who was like the original voice of the character to replace him, I think Harry should sue. I mean, I think he should sue. And I think there'd be a lot of people in America that would just raise their hand and go, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You just shouldn't have done that, you know. So now here's the question: is he fired from The Simpsons altogether, or is he fired from doing that character? And I followed Harry Shearer for many a year, and I haven't listened to PBS in a while, PPR, public radio, because they were just so one-sided and slanted it made me puke all the time. And so, but Harry Shearer on Sundays, at least around here, on Georgia Public Radio, they would, it was an hour show called La Show, and it was Harry Shearer. And he produced it in his house, and it went, he distributed it, and whoever wanted to put it out anyway. So he's been doing that for a long time with doing different character voices on his own, talks about politics and presidents and all these kinds of things for many years. So I've been a fan of Harry. And, it's just like, I don't think he's in the poorhouse, but, he could be. But the idea that hopefully he was smart enough to keep some of the money from all of his movies and everything that he's done, residuals from, The Simpsons. But back in my day, those of you who may remember Rich Little and remember Don Rickles. So, so think of some of those earlier, um, even George Carlin, some of the stuff that he talked about back then is so true now. Now, I've always was a fan of George Carlin back when he was on Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, when he would come out and do the skit with, I'm the hippy dippy postman. And, so I still remember that. Him and Pat Paulson and a lot of others, Pat Paulson for president back in about 68. It's funny as hell, right? And, but if the idea of humor, the idea of satire has just gone out the window. I mean, for example, this may be cutting it a little bit, but what about the samurai delicatessen on the old Saturday Night Live? When he was, speaking Chinese, the samurai, back in the Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi days, So is like that going to be offensive next? You know what I mean? The old versions of that. Is satire going to, political correctness? Is political correctness going to replace any type of satire? And it's sad to see what seems to be coming. I mean, I grew up in the day when there were carnival shows and side shows and people making a little extra cash, with little side shows of this and that. I could pull in and do a little puppet show and pass the hat and make sometimes $100 a night, and sometimes I wouldn't make $20. But you had the opportunity to be an entertainer and to to talk about things. And but now there's no communication. Everything is in lockdown. We can't discuss things between one another. We have to put on 2 more masks now because one wasn't enough. We have to believe in all this rhetoric, and we have to believe that all this time Harry Shearer has been a racist. Okay. What? Did he make any racist remarks as the character voice of, And what about this woman being the voice of Bart Simpson? Isn't that cheating? Aren't we going to call some kind of sexism? Should guys like jump up and down and go, wait, that's a girl doing Bart's voice? Yeah, well, Bart's still a little kid after all these years, but so, and it's a cartoon, and who really cares? But there was a woman that did the voices of Rocky, the flying squirrel, which June, I can't remember her last name, but anyway, I don't have a problem with who does the character voice. If they can do the voice and it's believable and it makes a character good, but to replace a person because he's not the right color for the voice, I think they should release the remake of Dumbo. That's all. And I'm not trying to be rude or whatever. I think, certain things should be just left as they are because they weren't racist or bigoted. They weren't written that way. Um, it's the people who look at them now who want to tell us that was the intent all along. So we need to change the paradigm. I think that we should speak up, and I'm talking about this about Harry because they think he should sue. And I think for all of the people who are being pushed aside, for all of the YouTubers who've been deleted or Facebook folks, and it continues, other folks are just not appearing anymore, either on Facebook or YouTube. Now, I thank Facebook. I mean, well, Facebook won't let me log on, but they know my IP address. And if I try to log on, nothing works. So, and I thank YouTube for allowing me to be a voice here. But at the same time, we have to stay positive about this. But we have to positively say something. We cannot be silent about this. We at least have to voice our opinion, whether we want to boycott the companies, whether we want to boycott watching The Simpsons, whether we want to boycott whatever. But we should at least tell each other how we feel about this. As neighbor to neighbor, we should tell each other, this is unsettling to me. I don't know why they're doing this. And somebody should tell somebody to stop this mess. Now, an artist in any movie who, whatever they put the money up and they want to get it done, but the idea of replacing people like the Queen of England in a period piece, and the Australians are pissed because they're still kind of sort of with the rule with the Queen, right? Under British rule. And so the idea that they would take the Queen and, so there are some irate people on the other side of the planet, them folks down under. And God forbid we can't say anything about it because then that would make me a racist, bigoted old white man when that's not what I mean at all. Um, Harry, you should sue. I think America would be behind you. Mary Martin played Peter Pan in the early 60s. Exactly. Thank you, Dark Truth. Hi, how are you? Chloe, how are you? Intuitive Empath. Yeah, it's always good to clear stones when you get them from wherever you get them, even if it's from a friend. Well, Elder Barry, I wasn't looking down. But anyway, I did want to get on here and be real long about this. I don't really want to throw a lot of negativity out there. I'm grateful that there are black actors and actresses and so forth that are so talented, but I honestly think they should pick a different venue. Hi Ed, how are you? Yeah, Don Rickles was the best, but if you think any of them guys could get away with what they did then, now, oh my God, they would try to hang Don Rickles, but you had to know who he was. I mean, even back in the days when Don Rickles was hanging out with, oh man, I had his name, the Rat Pack. what was the black singer's name? Uh, but anyway, they were always ragging on him for being Jewish, and well, Sammy Davis. Thank you, Teresa. As I was looking up, I could hear you. Sammy Davis Jr. And I grew up in them days, and they was always ragging on him. And we knew he was the only black guy in the group, except maybe the saxophone or somebody in the band. And it was an inside joke, but they were also showing America that we're going to hire he's with us. There's three amigo white guys, and we're toting around this, this black dude with us, Sammy Davis. But if you don't think that Sammy Davis could have walked out on him and done it all right on his own, but to the point was he was accepted. And so, but some of the jokes and things that went around back then would not go today, even, even with Sammy there, and with Don Rickles and some of them guys. So, but anyway, but we apparently knew it was satire and understood it to be humor. I mean, back in the days of Flip Wilson and when he did Geraldine, people say, well, he was doing a female voice. Of course he was. But if you look back in the day to Milton Berle, who always, he loved dressing up in drag. I sometimes wonder if he wasn't a closet transvestite, but he did it for the laugh. He knew that if he put on a dress or a skirt or something, he was going to get a laugh, especially if he had a cigar. So there were certain things back in the day, but if you look back in those days and you said, now, what was he doing in a dress? Was he mocking women? Was he mocking transvestites? Was he mocking transgender? You know what I'm saying? So, but what he did to to television in the 50s and early 60s, Milton Berle, Uncle Milty. Oh my God, everybody's Uncle Milty, So, but if you saw some of those sketches now, people would go, what was he doing? Why was he doing that? Oh, he must have been trashing somebody. No, he was doing it because it was funny. That's all. There was no other thing to it. He did it because it was funny, you know. Uncle Milty, Bob Hope. As much as people want to talk bad about him, I don't know, but I saw him in person in Valdosta, and when he got on a roll, he was one hell of a funny man. Regardless of whatever else he did, okay, he was a one on stage. He was genuinely a funny man. The same thing with Jack Benny. Jack Benny had his sidekick, was black. So this idea that somehow America, now would you go back in and replace Jack Benny with a black actor and the his butler, whose name is escaping me at the moment, exactly, Archie Bunker. So would we replace these characters if they redid them now? You know what I'm saying? Um, and that's not to be rude, but pick another storyline. Do a family that's like them, but that ain't them. You know what I mean? Don't try to replace them. Do something else. Sure, it could be along the same lines as Archie Bunker, but that's what Moving On Up to the East Side was. It was to show that there could be some uppity black people too who looked down on whites. He hated the his neighbor who was married to the black woman, right? So I mean, there was bigotry there in George Jefferson. I think I got that right. But so all this idea, Tony Curtis, yeah, Tony Curtis in Some Like It Hot, and I can't remember who the other person was, but now there are those in the business who say that if a man does a woman's character, like Tony Curtis did in Some Like It Hot, that it You have sold out to Hollywood. You have performed this other thing. And I think back, with Milton Berle and some of those, and they used to do those kinds of things back in vaudeville. And Uncle Milty was an old vaudevillian. And if you understood vaudeville at all, which was all these different people with these different acts, and they put on a 2 hour live performance, and sometimes they did it every night, and sometimes too, there was a Saturday matinee and a Sunday night performance, and then it's Sunday matinee the next day. Been there, done that. So, and you'll be tired by that third performance, let me tell you. Um, but there was a different feeling back then. It was to make you laugh. Uncle Milty wore the dress. Now, after that point, I think there was some shenanigans in that as part of the cult. Um, uh, Dave Chappelle talks about it, where they were saying, "Oh, here, wear this dress in this scene," and he goes, "Oh, hell no." Well, yeah, it'll be funny, and he goes, "Oh, hell no." So I have been in drag before. I have, played an effeminate part in a French um, comedy, Moliere, and but the idea though that that's who I am or that's who I want to be, but to play the character was absolutely hilarious. You know, to try to be a woman when I'm a guy, just to try to think like that and picture what a woman would do and how they cross their legs. It was sort of like I remember reading Tom Sawyer. I mean, they want to kick Samuel Clemens out of the thing too. Mark Twain. We can't have those words that he described, but that he wrote in dialect of the time. And when I moved up here to the South back I traveled through the South in the 60s, folks still talk like that. The way he wrote it back from the 1800s. But anyway, so they've been trying to kill the realness of things and replace them with a more feel good. No, the writer in 1800, 1880, whatever Samuel Clemens was, ish, his story should stand. You know, you're going to replace Tom Sawyer with a Mexican boy. Come on, you know what I mean? There are things that just seem absurd, but in order to make things colorful or color right or something, they want to, change these stories and put. Wait a minute. I'm sure there are stories with Mexican and Puerto Rican and South Americans that we would love to hear these stories. Ain't no movies about them. You know what I mean? Uh, um, Mel Gibson did Apocalypto, which I thought was very interesting because at the end of the movie, guess who shows up on shore? The white man. Like the natives didn't have enough trouble between them. Now the white guys show up. But I think there should be more diversity in the stories from Hollywood. But their Hollyweird is what it is. But we should be able to spot whatever it is their agenda is. We see it. We can't deny it. That's the biggest thing. Um, Tomas Suarez. Yeah, Barbara Streisand played a Jewish male. Absolutely. Dustin Hoffman, in Tootsie, right? Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire, you know. So where are we going with this? Hope I didn't hurt Mr. Ed's feelings. In a class play once I played a horse. Oh, I get you. Yep. Good night, Amber. Thank you. Blessings. Is Hawkeye lagging for anyone else? Oh, that's a good question. Mine doesn't seem to be on my end. My new modem seems to be working really well. Um, the Spanish version, Tom Sawyer, Huck and Huck Finn. Yeah. Well, but I could now. I get this. I could see a Mexican company wanting to tell a story about Huck Finn, not necessarily from um, a Mexican point of view, but in Spanish, and they might even go on location to the Mississippi River. I don't know. Greetings, Jody. Um, but the idea, though, that but that's different than replacing the characters, and I'm all for it. If look what the Italians did with the spaghetti westerns, Um, um, all I can think of, his name was Rowdy on Rawhide. Clint Eastwood, and Clint Eastwood moved from black and white when Rawhide was on the air, um, and he went and did for a few dollars more and that kind of thing. But it was the Italian. It was spaghetti. They called them spaghetti westerns, right? Italians, and a lot of them were dubbed. You could tell by the other actors, but they were still great. Yeah. There are a couple of channels on Roku and that play, they've got those old movies. And it's like there are some times when, you just got to watch, you know, um, um, for a few dollars more. Um, I was trying to think of a couple of the really early Clint Eastwood movies, and you'd be surprised in those old westerns from like Rawhide, Gunsmoke. Um, and I think it was Wagon Train with the old gentleman with the big mustache, and there were people on that show, and there were bit actors that came and went on that show. Um, and I was watching an old western, and it was Spock. Spock was one of the bad guys locked up in the shed, that the sheriff was coming to get, and it was just really interesting how many actors that made it into the big time later on that were bit actors, and some of them had strings of acting, like Clint Eastwood uh, as Rowdy on Rawhide. So Rowdy Yates. There you go, Elderberry, a fistful of dollars, and for a few dollars more. And there was, I think he did Hang 'em High, I think, and he wore a scarf because somebody had tried to hang him or something. But anyway, um, but yeah, those are still great to watch. And we look at some of the new movies and some of the camera angles and the shots. And these new guys want to say, like, look at all these new angles and things. You look back to those old spaghetti westerns and some of the the camera angles and the shots they did. And these guys these days don't, they think they've invented something new. Well, they might have drones and stuff, but back in the day, these guys, built cranes and towers and stuff to get a shot of the village and stuff. They didn't have drones. So you got to look at it from a perspective of how did they do that back then. And even going back to the, you know um, I was going to say Buster Crab, but it's Buster Keaton. Um, um, and when he did The General, and he was on that train, and all the shots they did, the train was moving down the track. So everything that they filmed had to be on a vehicle that was traveling at the same speed as the train. So, and all the antics that he did in those movies, and Charlie Chaplin in his day, and some of the antics, and the old Laurel and Hardy shows that they did, and those way back in the days. And you think about camera angles and some of the things that they did. These guys now are supposed to be these new artists. Nah, they tried it way back a long time ago. There's an old version of Phantom of the Opera that's really freaking creepy. you know I'm there. I think there's only piano music to it. It's that old. And there's a really old version of No Soferatu also that's really creepy, done obviously in black and white. But the camera angles, and as someone who's used lighting on stage and so forth, the way they had the camera angles and the lighting, those guys were magicians. But anyway, so much Michael Bay. Yeah, just CGI these days. And they've got these studios set up now where everything is done in front of a black screen. And Disney did it way back in the day, and you could go to one of the parks or something, and you could go in and make your own little movie like you were on Star Trek kind of thing with a blue screen. So and I've always said, one of the my favorite places to go when I went to Disney World um, back in the day. And when it first opened, I was there applying for a job actually, and about 1972 ish, or maybe 73, somewhere in there. That Magic Mountain wasn't done. A lot of stuff was still under construction, and it was way back in the days when you had paper tickets. So the haunted house to me was like just really something, and the Hall of Presidents, where all these machines turned and talked and spoke and everything. So the mechanics of that way back then and what the technology is now is phenomenal. But even the care, even the a Country Bear Jamboree was a ball. The animatronics involved in that. But what they've got now though is surreal. You know. Oh yeah, that's the one I was trying to remember, Elder. I hardly watch movies anymore. I watch if I'm watching something. Some of the newer cartoons that are out. I was watching one that's now one of my favorites. It's pig, goat, banana, and um, cricket. Or anyway, I forgot the last one. But anyway, and it's like what? And it's done in the old style comics, and I've been trying to remember this guy's name, but it was back in the day of the Keep On Truckin' and the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, those underground cartoons. And I used to have a couple of copies of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. Does anyone else hear a conversation in the background? Am I talking, or there's something else? Do you hear it now when I'm being quiet? That's why I shut up. I don't have anything on in the house except this heater down here. Did that do it? Hey, Mandy, how are you? It was the fan. It was I didn't move the fan to where it wasn't vibrating, and a lot of times I turn it off. I don't. If I use ear jacks, then there's no microphone. Um. So, but anyway, with that. But yeah, talking about old movies and stuff in that respect. Um. I'm glad you said something, Doug. That it was annoying. Night is B. No, 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 no. I'm good. I'm bit warmed up my spot. Nah, not cold. I was chilly earlier. We had a really good amount of sunshine today that warmed up the house. But I'd been in and out of the house with Duggar, who is still outside, by the way. Um, I wondered why it was so quiet. But in noticing, for example, I was going to mention this yesterday and I didn't. For the last couple of nights and today, it was absolutely gorgeous outside. That we should have another one. Two in a row. Oh my God. But in watching Orion, where it is in the sky, the planet has rolled again. Uh, I would say towards the south, which means we're in a little bit warmer weather. When Orion is lower in the sky, it seems like we have rolled north and it gets a little colder down here. So there's a high pressure that's sitting over us right now. It's going to keep us in this condition for a little while. But in looking at where Orion is from my back door, I use the limbs in the oak tree that's here as a reference point. Is it higher or lower than this tree limb? And I try to stand in the same place every time so I can use that reference because the tree doesn't move around a lot. And I've noticed that Orion is up higher than it was, but not as high as it had been, if that's any whatever. Um, but it's been really cloudy, so it was hard for me to, judge over the last week was nothing but clouds, a little bit of spotty here and there. What I've also noticed in my southern sky last night, there were two UFOs. Tonight, there's only one, at least that I could see. The moon's a lot brighter, so it was casting a little light, but um, it's in the same location that it has been showing up. And I double checked again. It ain't on any star charts, but last night there were two. One was up a little higher, and one was over here, and they didn't move for a long time. And they're not planets because I should see them there every night, and they don't. So the sky changes behind them, but those objects stay located. And it's the way they twinkle, and it almost looks like um, a double-ended pyramid. I can't remember what the name of it is, but so they're back out there again for sure. You're sitting on a cow delating since the 22nd of February. The sky has been different. This is the 25th. Yeah, I can't vouch for the 22nd because we still had clouds, but the last two nights, yes. And on then see, this is the 25th. It would have been yesterday or the day before, night before, when I went out and checked Orion. It was high up earlier on in the evening and I could spot it in the tree. But by the time it set a few hours later, it had dropped. It's almost like the whole planet had shifted like by 5 to almost 10 degrees in just a couple of hours. And I was shocked. I was like, what? Because I notice when I go out, or I usually, if Orion sets correctly, I can't see it set because of this oak tree. But when I can see it set, it means it's not where it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Chatty chatters. The duplicate stars yet. Um, I'm not sure what you mean by this, Mandy, but I'm going to explain this. And maybe this is what you mean. Um, from a certain point of view, they will put a spaceship to align itself with a star in the background. So you'll think that you're looking at a star. Is that what you mean? Because I have noticed that, and being, a student of astronomy most of my life now, with the many telescopes and binoculars and ocular things that I have. Unfortunately, I don't have something that'll take a good picture of that UFO down there, but it's always showing up. And every time it's clear, I always check. And this is only 12:20. Smoke if you got them. Well, it's 12:16, almost 12:20. Um, but it's in the same location are the ones that are right beside another and it looks like the same as the other star. Yeah, that yeah, so and it depends on where they're trying to hide. So from my perspective, it would line up with a star, but if you come over here a little bit, it'll look like a double star. If I'm with you on that. Now there's probably another explanation or some other thing, but that's what I was getting for quite a while, that they were going to do the double star. Oh God, I knew about this, I guess going on 20 years, that they were lining up spacecraft or things or whatever between us and stars. And, you know, that was one of the ways that they were able to camouflage themselves, if you were. I would be in a. Okay, Mandy. Yeah, the things that I have observed that I don't have pictures of, Mandy. I've told this to other folks. I don't know if you were around back then, but and I've been talking about it for years. But one evening, it was about this time of the year. It was in March, kind of. It was in the spring, and I was out, and the sun was going down, and I was looking towards the south, towards for my location, which would be Tallahassee. So I'm looking that away, and I see this orangish object coming across the sky, and I'm thinking there must be an airplane coming out of Tallahassee Airport. But it was just orange, and there are planes that fly over my house all the time, and it's obvious that when they come out of Tallahassee, you can see the blinkers on them and everything, even from the 70, 80 miles away I am from Tallahassee. You can still see them even without binoculars, and I know the difference. And there's a north-south traveling lane above the Georgia-Alabama line, and you can see airplanes at different altitudes going north and south. So this has been common for me for a long time. Um, but these things that are out down there, so that evening wasn't dark yet, but it was twilight. So I keep watching it, and I go, well, that must be a satellite or something. And I was like, but it's really orange, and shouldn't it be like higher up or something? So as this few minutes is passing, as I'm watching this thing go overhead, this white object appears. It got just past overhead, like about 10 degrees if I was looking straight up. So it had just passed overhead, and I mean almost overhead, from my location. And this white dot appeared, shot a laser beam at the orange one. Then the white dot disappeared, and the orange one just went poof and was gone. And I stood out in the yard and went, "What the fuck?" I can still see it so clearly in my head. So it's like, when I talk about the wars in outer space and between the different races and etc., my contacts, whoever they are up yonder, have led me outside to show me these things, literally going on. So, and I've seen, there was one night I was coming home from a friend's house, and they told me to stop the truck, and I'd come out of this curve and pulled over to the side of the road, and they said, look out the window. And I looked out, and something came apart. and it was bigger than the shuttle disaster. Remember how all the debris and everything? There was stuff all over the sky. And I mean, it went from one side of um, the horizon to the other. And I was up on a hill, so I could see pretty well. And there was debris strewn everywhere. And I went immediately home and tried to report it to the national meteorology, incoming kind of stuff. They would not accept it. I tried three different times to log the event in. Somewhere I even did an audio recording, so I would recall the colors that I saw, which direction it was going. It was mostly from south to north, but that wasn't a meteorite. That was something else. But my higher self guys were saying, you want proof of the war up here? Look out your window. And I just happened to be there when whatever happened. But oh my God, it was spectacular. I've not seen anything else like it. The only other thing would sort of be like, the Chernobyl, not the Chernobyl, the Chernobyl's thing that came in, right? But there was debris everywhere up in the sky, but there was not one sound. There was no boom. There was no echo, but fire and particles, and the whole sky lit up with greens and purples and reds and oranges and yellows and oh my God. So, but anyway, um, yeah. Well, Jody, about the dog star, in my several readings, all of the native nations, especially on North America, know that their ancestors came from the dog star. They know it. And I know there are other tribes, but so why would, through all the ancient traditions of the native peoples, and the proof and so far of that, but when they didn't have any kind of mechanical means, they weren't industrialized. So 2,000 years, we'll just say 2,000 years of Native Americans versus 2,000 years of Vikings and Nordics and Germanics and the Gaelics and the Huns and the Egyptians and the Greeks, and you know what I'm saying? So whole different kind of culture over there versus over here. Now they had spears and knives of obsidian and of flint, which are still very effective. Oh my God, they still use flint knives for certain things because they just stay sharp. And I was showing this to a friend of mine just the other day that this is a piece of flint that was worked as an arrowhead. So, and it's sharp. Don't run your finger across the edge of it. And that was the beginning of the serrated blade. 2,000, 3,000 years ago. But there were no metals actually formed. So, but on the other continent, even the Chinese, they all knew about metalworking and things, where native folks not so much. It wasn't until the white man got here that they started plundering the silver and the gold. Now, gold's easy to work. So, and they could find it, but who sent them into the mountain to go look for this stuff? You know, where a lot of Native American tribes, that wasn't really on their list of things. It was polished rocks and seashells when they could get them, and those types of things. But they didn't place value um, on monetary or the collecting of things. Um, so their culture was taken with them. The culture were teepees. Their culture were, I guess, if you wanted to say, they made their houses out of sticks and straws, and the big bad wolf came along and knocked them down. And it wasn't until they went into a brick building, of course, by then most Native Americans were, wiped out. But this idea, though, that they knew from the dog star, they knew who the ancestors were. It's taught in all the stories, it's told in all the different languages of the native peoples. And, they pretty much all agree. Mandy from Australia wants to call or email you. Okay, that'd be one hell of a long distance call there, Mandy. But you can, I don't mind, yeah, Teresa, you can throw my email up there, whatever, and maybe we can do some kind of Skype or something. I need practice with somebody. I would invite people on if I had the brain power to figure it out on how to get it done with this now my third computer. Um, my first at my store yesterday, we got our first. A few hours later, 6 sections of doors. Good for you, Chloe. Good for you, Chloe. There were when I worked on the radio station here. There are a lot of farmers around here. There's cabbages and tomatoes at times, and cantaloupe, and depending on what time of year it is, there. So, but anyway, um, I'd get a phone call and somebody'd say, "There's a tractor trailer a load that dumped over going around the curve at such and such," and tell everybody that they've got a whole tractor trailer load of vegetables that's literally going to be of no good. So I would announce it over the air, and me and my friend Martha were coming from or to her house or something anyway, come around a curve, and sure enough, one of the trucks had dumped over a whole load of boxed cabbages. And, they were just spread out over the side of the road. And we stopped by and got us a couple of boxes and then handing other people and, and helping other folks. And because, it was on the side of the road. From what I remember being told, a tool is nothing more than an extension of our own ability to do it, whereas one can make a very good observation, or as another relies on a tool, both are effective. But always remember to rely on self observation. Yes. Remember randomly coming to me several times. Yep. And one of the things, too, is like, here's one of the things about adaptability. And I think I try not to talk too much about preparedness, but when you're down on the river and something happens to you, and I talked about where I cut my finger and blood was spurting everywhere, and how I figured it out in under a couple of minutes. But I didn't have what I needed or should have had, but you make do. So if you're stuck in a situation where you get caught by a rainstorm or something happens and you can't get back, what to make a shelter out of and what do you use? And, but here's the thing, if you have a basic knowledge of stuff, you can look around your area and figure what stuff, whether it's in a swamp or on a mountain, or now I have been in the desert and I've looked around and went, there ain't much stuff here. It would be hard to, eke out a living out here in the desert. I was in, I traveled through Nevada from one end from Reno to Las Vegas, right down through the middle, right? And so stopped several times, looked at the cactuses and picked up a few rocks and, at how weird it was out there on the desert like it was. And thinking, it's a nice place to visit, but I could not see myself living there. Now, there are people who love it. Me, no. I got to have my trees. I got to have, no, I couldn't do it. Um, and it would be difficult for me to try to come up with a way because there are not very many things to be able to survive with. But anywhere where there's some kind of forest or something or whatever, I'll figure it out because you can find tree limbs, you can find brush, there are things that if you know what you can look for, you can make do. without a lot of tools or anything. But you have to be able to use some common sense and say, well, if I was at home, I'd be using, 2x4s or something. So I'm going to look around and go, well, what would work like that in my surroundings? So you use the knowledge that you have. I guess it's where wisdom comes in. But I've always had this. So that's why I say I was born, I was a pioneer in a previous life, because no matter what situation I'm in the woods, I'll look around, and there are times enough I just stop to take a break. I'll look around and go, wow, you could build a little hut over there, and there's enough stuff around here that you could set up a little fish camp at least for a couple of days. Because anywhere unless it's a bigger river, you're going to have to migrate to stay in one spot. You're not going to you'll fish it out. So you're going to have to stop a couple of days, go north, fish, south, fish, and then depending on which way you're going, you would go past the point where you fished either north or south and a little bit further, and then you'd set up your next camp, right? So that keeps you in the same area. You kind of learned the area, but you're not in the same spot, and you don't overfish an area. We overfished the backpack here. It wasn't hard to do, but we overfished it, and it was really quick. So, a couple of people fishing in one spot, when there's not a lot of water flow, then all of a sudden now you don't have any fish. Now you got to go somewhere. But you got the river that you should be able to throw in and get fish. Not if it's if you fished it out north and south of where you're at. So you're going to have to move one way or the other. You got to do a lot of traveling to fish or something. So, but anyway, in learning about being adaptable, if you don't know these certain basic things, then you're going to have a hard time adapting, no matter what it is in the real world, in an apocalyptic setting, or you just got stuck somewhere. You don't know how to get your car out. And there's just a lot of tricks I've learned over the years that no matter where I've been, I mean, I was stuck on a mountain with my brother, and the back end of the truck was underwater. And we literally had to get into the water to get block under it so we could jack it up out of the water. And this was in North Georgia, almost to South Carolina, right up in that northern tip of north South Carolina and Georgia, but we were in Georgia. But anyway, and it was like 2 days after Christmas. So it had rained up there, and then it turned freezing. We left the rain about an hour south, and then it just got cold and clear. But we got stuck up on that mountain, and I mean, we were soaking wet. The high temperature for the day was like 32, and we were soaking wet from head to toe, digging our way out and getting the truck out, and then we got it to another spot, and then the truck took off by itself down this. I mean, this incline was like straight down where the road had washed out. And my little Isuzu, we hung it to the edge of the side of the mountain, and she took off down the road without either one of us in it. And it was like just like Laurel and Hardy looking at each other, my brother bigger and me being smaller. But it's like, but trying to run down this mountain with a sheer drop off to try to catch my truck that took a hard left and then went almost off the side of the mountain that way. So we had to spend the rest of the day into the night digging the truck out of the mud, and the front tire was literally hanging off the side of the mountain. We didn't have I carry a come along with me now, but we worked it to where we jacked up the truck so it was a little uneven, and we backed it up so the jack would fall, and we dig it out and we jack it up again, and because we didn't have anything to pull it with, so we used the truck and leverage to tip it backwards, and we got a little further and a little further. It took us forever to dig that truck out, and nobody was going to come help us. This road, we found out later on, had been closed because it had washed out, but it was still on the maps as being an open road. But anyway, so but we got out of that, you know. So I look at situations like that. We didn't plan on it, you know. We were just going to up there and into the wilderness area and going fishing and camping and for a couple of days and come home over, you know, Christmas vacation. No big deal. And we did, but you know, we didn't expect to spend a whole day, you know, swimming and digging in the mud, you know, oh my God, on top of a mountain. But anyway, it was a great experience. And from that, though, we learned that whatever we could find around us, what we didn't have in the truck, and I usually carry the kitchen sink kind of thing. But I had taken some blocks for whatever reason to wood starter and kind of thing because we knew it was wet up here. And those blocks came in handy because had I not, they were like 4x4s cut up into pieces. And that's what we put the jack on to get us out of the hole. If I hadn't packed those blocks, I don't know what we'd done. We'd still been up there. Who knows? But it made everything easier. So, but the ability to adapt to a situation, regardless of what happens, regardless if it's, you know, just some weird thing going on in your day or some really crazy thing like getting stuck up in the mountains. But if I'm going down somewhere like that now, I always take a come along, and I've always got some those you know, straps, and maybe you know, a 25-foot length of chain just in case, or some cable, because you never know when you're going to get stuck. And some friends of mine, because of all this rain, and I was walking up the hill the other day and noticed that my friends that are here almost got stuck on my hill right up here. And because as they were trying to leave, their tires were spinning, even though it had quit raining. So it's really soft in places. So um, but anyway, you know, versus, well, we got stuck. I don't know what to do. We'll have to walk somewhere and come back and get it. Nah, I ain't doing that. I'm gonna figure some way to get my vehicle unstuck if possible. I very rarely ever had to call anybody. And there was a time or two when I should have, but I've always, you know, but I'm wiry that way and determined. But it's also the challenge of figuring out, you know, what did the pioneers do? How did them people get them wagons over the Rocky Mountains? You know, seriously, when there ain't no roads. You know, I drove through the Rocky Mountains and it's hard in a vehicle, let alone, you know, with horses and wagons and people and belongings and what. So every time there's something that comes my way, regardless of what it is, I try to think back, what did the old timers do? How would I look at this? You know, would I go, oh my God, we're all going to die? Or would I go, let me see how I can get out of this? You know what I mean? So in that little dissertation, that pretty much sums up what I mean. In that um, we we don't panic. We just go, okay, we got to figure this one out. There ain't nobody around but me and us or whoever, you know. And but we're going to figure this one out. So, and I think that's why a lot of us are together right now, like right here in the chat, and with, you know, the League of Like-Minded Beings. We are all a part of that, and the Soul Tribe. Um, Good for you, teaching old school. D Ocean, how mine froze too, and I only just got here. We all need Earthship with fully planted atriums. Yep, trying to learn how to do that. I wish I was just a little younger. Um, Today I just couldn't get going, and it was such a beautiful day. I feel like I missed it, but in a lot of ways I did. But you know, my sleep habit has been really bad ever since my accident. So the fact that I can wake up and still be here, I'm not going to bitch about it. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm also wondering because my head's felt different since I got this new modem and whatever the frequency the Wi-Fi is. So I'll let you know how that goes. Um, Many folks experience mood swings. Yes, yes, yes. Um, well, for me, I consider it sometimes. It's almost like they tell me, "Okay, you need to lay down, Hawkeye," but I don't want to. Tough, and it's like I have to. They want me to go into the dream world, and it's almost like I'm an avatar here, and they're telling me, "Okay, get in your little box. We're going to take your, what your other self is. We got a job for you." And this has been going on for quite a while. So, but there are times when, I want to argue, like, I don't want to go back to the whatever the dream state you wish you take me. And they're like, sorry, dude, you signed up for this. This is part of the gig. So it used to bother the crap out of me a couple of years ago. But as I have listened to my guardian angels, I understand that, there are reasons why they knock me out sometimes. And it for whatever is going on, what I will call the dream state, or the there are times when and I used to remember things, and because it seemed like there was a bleed over of information, and also there was a person here at the time who I won't mention, but that there was a real problem with some interference. And so I was like, I don't want to hear from none of you, okay, until the antenna waves get straightened out, because some of the information was somehow hijacked, or it was like there was a hacker in between, and I was like, I'm not listening. I ain't paying attention. I'm going to still be me. I'm still Hawkeye. I'm not changing anything. But as far as listening to my higher self, but over the years, my point to that though has been that in listening to that higher self, you get to trust that some of this information is correct. Yeah, and I mean, just for myself, that Hawkeye is my name, and Hawk is my toad. I mean, those things. But when those things are proven, for example, when they say go outside, we want to show you the aliens again and where they're at. Go outside and look to the southwest, and boom, there's something that's not normally there. Or the night I was outside watching that thing, and then all of a sudden, it got blowed up. I mean, those are realities that I can only describe. But these are the experiences that I have witnessed from them telling me, go out. We want to show you something. What? Yeah, pull your truck over. Look out. Okay. I mean, it's really creepy at times because you go, huh? You want me to pull over? Yeah, look, you're going to miss it. Holy shit, And you see all this stuff going on above you, or you see one shoot another one down, or whatever it was that was going on up there. So for myself, it's like I'm going to a meeting, but because I was having problems with not leaving there, wherever there was or is, I told him, I said, I want you to wipe my memory. When I get back down here, don't leave a trace. I don't want it to feel. So there are times when I wake up going, I have just been somewhere, but I don't know where the fuck it is or was. Wow, where the hell was I just at? You know, and then there are times I wake up from a dream or it's normal, but then there are those times when I wake up going, where the fuck was I? Now, I don't think that I left physically, but I do think that energetically, they've been taking me for a long time. So, but I've gotten used to it in that it's still annoying, But when I connect to my higher self, there are times when um, about a year, it's been over a year ago now, I was having these absolute vivid dreams. And then when I'd wake up here, I could still see the dream. I was still there. and that one of my tasks was as a communicator, not as a scientist or anybody, just somebody who knows some engineering and some this, and I can plumb, and I'm a naturalist and that kind of thing, but I'm not a politician in the respect of the world. I'm not a military person, although I can shoot well, and so they asked me to be a spokesperson in this galactic council. And this went on, and then there was something that happened. And I told my guardians, I said, listen, I don't need to remember this during the daytime. Whatever is going on up there, I'm asking you, make sure my memory is wiped when I get back here. So those dreams stopped as soon as I asked them to do that. But here recently, it seems like, and right now it would be acceptable, guys, you hear this, gals, um, that you can let a little slip through now and again because things are different than what it was. Um, so I could tell you where people were in the room. I could tell you what the architecture was. I could feel being in the room and having these conversations. I even wrote down part of the speech that I was given, and I was, to all entities and beings in all dimensional realms, on all planets and all worlds and all the universes. We here in this council come in peace. And I had this speech, I wasn't direct. I was asked to give it, and because for some reason I know these people in this council, uh, I was speaking from them because when you're in this other dimension, you can see if somebody's lying, you know. And someone next to me or near me was sort of, I think it was just my guardian who was there with me going, watch out for this guy. See, there's his aura's off a little bit. Now, because they're different types of beings and so forth, um, the auras and things on stuff changes, so what you may mistake as being something demonic may not be that at all because they're a different being, a different sort of dimensional ship, another universe, and I needed an interpreter. So, but with that though, it was agreed that those people that were at the conference, that they agreed to allow me to be the communicator because it wasn't anything about military. It was about how do we fix our differences between us in whatever language and whatever region of space or so my reality of the universe and of things, and there have been many times I've tried to slough this off as a dream, and I know really deep down in my head somewhere that I think I've actually been to these places because over a period of time, and the types of I'll wake up out of a dream with like a discussion, like I had just got done doing a YouTube video talking about a subject, and so I know I'm crazy, you know. Um, um, David, there are those dreams more real than sitting here right now. Yes, many times. I'm 50 miles north of Kansas City. I've been up to that direction. It's pretty country out there. Yeah, Mandy Moo, about, there are those times when I kind of talk about this space stuff and things, and, I don't want to hype it um, because it seems more important that my duty here on Earth this time as an emissary and as a communicator is not to like, the Palladians this or the Argarthans or the Anunnaki. Now, I have talked about the Charistas. I've had enough confirmation that I am somehow related to the Charistas, and not as a 72 or as anyone in the know, but there are certain things, there's certain information that I get that through one channel or another within a day or two will pop up in a video or something. And I'll go, oh, holy shit. So it's like, where did I go? What was I in a meeting with some people? I really don't know, because I asked them to wipe me when I came back, run me through the coffee filter kind of thing before I got back down here. So that I wouldn't. I, my issue is because of my brain injuries, there are sometimes realities want to waver, and it's like, if that is another reality, then I want to leave it there. It's okay that I can go there, or that you guys come and get me. But at the same time, though, I don't want it fading in and out of my day to day when I'm dealing with head trauma over the last 30 years, right? And I'm still learning how to walk and talk and get some of my, my brain back. So and it was bleeding through, you know what I mean? So I asked him, make sure the knob's up to 10 when you run me through the filter. Basically, you know. um, okay, Mandy. We'll set it up, or however, Um, but for me, because of the my brain trauma in this reality, um, I that's why I was kind of strict when I was like, if I'm doing a good job wherever I'm at, or whatever it is that it is, I know that I have been in the service of good. I know that I have been in the service of positive beings, because my insides tell me, I have trouble, if a spider is over there in the window, I don't bother him. But if he runs across the floor near me, he's squashed. I don't go looking for trouble, but there are those times when, I'm going to squash something. Caterpillars eating my tomato plants, squash. No discussion. But I'm not going to go out in the world and want to spray the planet to kill all bugs. You know what I mean? It just, So there are those things that are, sort of obvious in nature. You don't let the bugs eat what you need to eat, unless you plan on eating the bugs, which I have thought about a few times. And if I was hungry, probably in a little bit of olive oil or something in a walk was, maybe not too bad. I mean, the people in Korea and the Philippines and Thailand, they all throw bugs in their stuff for the protein because they ain't got nothing else to eat. But anyway, with this being taken to other places, though, um, do I feel like I'm going with the angels? I don't know. It seemed like somebody asked a question in their head. I don't know, maybe in the chat. But when I was on the river for those 3 days, I saw myself walk away spiritually with an angel on either side. Now, not necessarily with wings, but basically just a white robe kind of deal, um, and glowing. And I'm being led off. It was a really odd feeling. I still like, you know, it's it's chilly, but then my body, I left it and caught up with the two spirits. It was almost like I could still see from my body as my spirit was walking away. And so, but in the realm of all things that I've studied, angels or demons or anything like that, having seen some really nasty demons, um, I think I would know if I was working for the good side or not, is where I'm headed with this. Um, so anytime I have been off on a mission, there's been times when it felt like I was wounded. And later on, there was like, man, somebody set a bomb in one of the conference rooms where we were meeting with the delegations. And I was just there as an observer. And in case somebody got out of line, I was the camp counselor. Okay. I was the grown up in the room, not a politician, not a military person, just a person going, wait, hang on, guys. Let's keep this civil. So that's where my character gained its respect, in that I respected no matter who wanted to speak, as long as, if anybody knows what Robert's Rules of Orders are, as long as you follow the thing. So it's like, raise your hand, please. You can speak. Well, we can have a rebuttal. We can have more discourse. We can still do that, but we're gonna be civil about it. That's all. That's the main deal. And we're going to hear from other folks' point of view. Well, you two are the two adversaries, but let's ask your neighbor what they think about your situation. Anyway, so, but my situation this last year was kind of weird. Some of you may know, but without saying anything more about it, there was a lot of confusion going on and a lot of interference psychically, uh, energetically, just a lot of weird stuff. And that no longer exists. And so I've had reassurance from my spirit guide folks. I refer to them as spirit guides. They're probably, they could be sitting in an alien spacecraft somewhere, waiting on me to um, they'll call on me when they need me for whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing. And there are times like I remember one time flying in the cockpit of this thing, and Hawkeye had to pee down here. And I remember going to the bathroom, and I was in this cockpit driving something, and myself in the cockpit said, "No, not now. You should have peed before you laid down," kind of thing. And I was like, "But I gotta go." So I was still in the cockpit of this something out in space. And I mean, I don't play video games or anything like that. I have, but that is not like, so I don't do any 3D or any kind of stuff like that. But I was sitting in the cockpit of something, and it was out in space. And I think we were being shot at. It was like, get your act together here. So, but it was the feeling after that. And I've tried to search in my mind, where have I seen that cockpit before? Where, why did it feel like I was in it? Was it from a movie? Was it from a series? And I have not been able to find anything close to what I felt you know like I was sitting in the Millennium Falcon or something. But and it was I knew it. I knew over here on the left was something, and something over here, and I knew it. And I knew the person sitting in the cockpit where I was going, and me having to pee down here was not a good time. So, you know, and I have talked about it once or twice, but um, there are a lot of folks who talk to aliens and this and that and the other thing, and I don't even want to go there. But at the same time, there's information that I get that I don't talk about here, that I just have to go, okay, hmm, okay, hmm. Like, go outside and look up. Like last night, I was probably going to go out anyway, but they were like, no, go out and look now. So come on, Duggar, let's go, right? Oh, he's still outside. Um, and there were the two UFOs and not one. And I was like, now that was just odd. And I kept an eye on them for about an hour or so. And then I was just like, well, they've been there an hour. That's longer than any planet or any star or anything. It would have moved out of the field of vision. So if they're still in the same location after an hour, it ain't a star, which I already know, but that's my observation, right? The stars have moved behind them. So, um, but yeah, there are some interesting things that have occurred to me in that dream state. Um, a lot of the things because I must somehow be a shaman in another life, or there is something about whatever my essence is. And I've had some shitty things happen, and um, 6 foster homes in 3 years before I was adopted by my uncle Arnie, and don't know what happened during then, but it was crappy, and it took me a long time to shake those dreams. And whatever went on and whatever transpired back then, I was in tunnels. I was, running from something. And it was so very real. I could feel the water on my hands and knees because I was a little kid, trying to run from something, someone's. And people have said, well, that's your inner fears. No, as a 5-year-old, I had those dreams. What the was I running from? What would a 5-year-old be dreaming running from something in tunnels, And they have since told me that was then, this is now. And that because of the messages I used to get in the middle of the night when I was a kid, I would wake up in the winter times, and you couldn't see a lot of stars out my window. But where I lived in North Tampa, Margaret Avenue, 9414 Margaret Avenue, still remember. But that, I'd look out the window and be 2 or 3 in the morning and there'd be Pleiades. And I would catch myself, like I'd wake up and go, why am I looking out? I'd have my arms on the window like this, and I'd be watching Pleiades, 7 sisters. Now that was like 9, 10, 11, 12. Even later on, I would just wake up in the middle of the night and see that star cluster. Many moons ago, I was told that I had Palladian descendancy, but not necessarily Palladian like a lot of people are talking Palladians, but that I have ancestry there, and that those were the folks that was talking to me. Now, over these last 8 or 9 years, where I have I've been fine tuning my conversations with them wonderful folk up there. I think they got infiltrated, quite honestly. There was a traitor in the group, and because a lot of things got quiet on a lot of different channels, things just like, which was interesting. A few years back, there was through medicine people and shamans and drummers and stuff, and they were told, don't do any personal drummings. Stop doing any personal ceremonies, because there was such of an energy that was about and that had been released. And it goes back to the Gulf oil spill, by the way, which is coming back up in some interesting ways. In an interview I heard tonight about, that the BP oil spill was much more than oil, that there were other things going on down there. And I told you that there has been some reports that there was a being who was a really negative she kind of devil, that even the Pope has mentioned her name um, within the last couple of months, that we should give her honor, and they drilled in this crack down there in the deep ocean and let her out. And so a lot of the darkness and some of the things that are happening to the planet are because of that. And the entities and how things have picked up and how, whales and things and they released a lot of pressure on a place that was kind of holding some stuff together, and they went way down deep and drilled a hole right in a T spot kind of crack, and to help fracture it even more and release pressure and change the wobble of the earth. You understand? Because all that oil that came out, and then all of that corexit that they put on the plant over the ocean, and all the things that it affected, and it affected the Gulf Stream all the way over to England, and all because that's where the Gulf Stream goes. So all of Europe got all the shit that was in the Gulf, and they still are. So what happened in the Gulf was really serious, and it's being discussed by some folks right now that I was just like, what? I've known about this, and it's been discussed. And my friend who used to work on drilling oil rigs and work, my friend Serge, who worked in water and waste and all. Anyway, so we would discuss it when it happened. What a bunch of buffoons, and what were they doing there? And it must have been something else. So we were conspirators from the moment it happened. Somebody screwed up, and probably on purpose. But anyway, um, but the fact that I'm hearing about the Gulf oil spill through these other channels, about what I've been told and others have said, and it's like, now that's some shit. So there must have been, and their comments were that they drilled down there much more than for oil, and it was to disrupt the planet somehow. And they were testing a device, and it's like, okay. So whether or not we want to believe that these folks have the means to upset the planet, yes, they do. But a lot of it is because they have help from really nasty folk from out yonder. So just like Ronald Reagan said, would we all get together to fight, you know, someone from out there, if that ever came to that? Well, back when Reagan was in president, a lot of stuff has come out through the Reagan Library and things like that. They were quiet for a while, and there a lot of times there are moratoriums on letters that can be read and so forth after their death. So, but in a lot of the stuff that they have found out, that Reagan knew a heap lot more about aliens and outer space than a lot of people want to give him credit for. And sort of so did George Bush Senior, CIA. And that some of this stuff, I still remember that chilling, time when he made those words, the new world order, and it will be ruled by the rule of law, not by the laws of man. And it was like, what? That famous one he did back in the day. I witnessed it and thought, oh my God, we are up shit creek, ain't we? But to personal things, I don't know if other people have, similar types of things. And I think, uh, um, there are entities. All right. There are natural ethereal entities that have nothing to do, more or less, with the space folk. Different group. So the entities and so forth that I've met here may have a connection because everything's connected to the universe. But it seems like some of these things are like stuck here. They don't do a lot of adventuring or traveling. It's almost like they're stuck here. Um, and it may be that their energy isn't um, wanted elsewhere. Now, let me tell you a little story about this, about this being the prison planet. Now, several years ago, I was reading the alien papers that a nurse from basically Roswell was there, and there was a female entity that was recovered from the crash, and she refused to talk to any of the guys. And so she was an army nurse there to observe, and finally the entity spoke to her in her head, and she wrote it all down, typed it up, and she kept a copy for herself. And back in the, I don't know, late 90s, early 2001 to somewhere in there, or '04, something anyway. She got sick and passed this on, and it's online. It was on my other computer, and when it frizzled, it was on the hard drive. Otherwise, I would read the other section. But and having read it several times, she said um, that Earth, way back in the day, that political prisoners of all times, I mean, think Stalin and Nazis, so dissidents like me, I guess. But the reason there are so many artisans and musicians per capita, because damn near everybody's got a little bit of artist or music or something in them, that has been recycled, these energies, these beings. So we are our own ancestors over the years. We just keep coming back, right? Not so much as a karmic event, although there was claimed that there was a magnetic type event over the earth that would keep our souls from going anywhere but back to earth, and that these beings came here to try to help out earth, but crashed, couldn't get off the planet, and then they were stuck here too. But the bad guys, think of the Dominion, and interesting that that's what they were called, the very ancients. They had bad people that they couldn't deal with. So, and if a bad entity can't deal with an entity, it must be pretty freaking bad. So they marooned them here and put some of the worst of like the Kraken, said, well, there's this energy, we can't destroy it, so we got to contain it. Well, nobody wants it. We don't want it. Do you want it? No. So they found this outpost on the fringe of the galaxy and stuck some of the nastiest entities, because they didn't want them anywhere else, right? Now, that's supposed to be from this alien speaking to the nurse, okay? But at the same time, there were more beings brought here because, like in China, they didn't want artists, they didn't want musicians or anything like that, because that's seen as, useless, if you're not building something or providing, so, but anyway, so that those entities were brought here too. Those energies, those, you know, 3D beings apparently dropped off here, but the energies, because of whatever supposedly was keeping the souls from leaving the planet, that you just kept getting recycled here. Now there are those who considered that the moon was, you was the recycling center. You went to the moon, you got your papers, and you sent back to Earth on another mission. Maybe, who knows? But it's interesting though that if you say, well, per capita of people, why are there so many like really, really, really nasty beings here? I mean, a Jeffrey Dahmer, and just not that I want to think along those lines, but there are some really evil entities on this planet. and they love to hear people scream and fight, and they want to eat us, you know. So, but most of the planet ain't that. So, in listening and reading about, these letters from an alien, um, that if this is true, and there are the reptilian things and stuff, but some of them have gotten trapped here too. So it was the old Dominion software, I guess you could say, which is interesting because that's the name of the software that they're using for the elections. I was like, what? That's the name the alien gave of the dominant race that was like, in Star Wars, the Darth Vader guys, right? So, but and the name of it was the Dominion. So, there's also other references to the Dominion in some of the Star Trek series, I think. Maybe in this, I don't think, maybe in the Star Wars, but more in Star Trek. Anyway, so, but that the correlation of Dominion software and them being the old guard, and that the old guard is trying to retain this piece of property that they've maintained as a prison or for whatever, right? So you have to scratch your head and go, hmm. And somebody said, "Well, where does the Anunnaki come in this?" Well, what about this one, and what about that one? Listen, the history of this planet and solar system. There's so much that's went on here that we're just not aware of. That have been literally blasted out of existence. Um, there was a certain place in Nevada that we stopped. I mean, I had to stop and get out. And in all the terrain and all around, here was this little lumpy spot. There was a rock here and this, everywhere else. And I mean, for miles, because I checked, was this little outcropping. And the road kind of went right over the top of it and down the other side. And I'm going, wait a minute, we're going to pull over here. And I got a couple of rocks from that spot. But everything else looked different. But here's this little outcropping. Took a picture or two, and looked around, hopped around in the desert, and shook my head and go, now, I've studied enough of geology and stuff. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I was like, this little thing, after 50 miles, there's not a hump. Then we come across this little thing that ain't very long, almost kind of circular, and down the other side, I go, nah. Look left, right, this way, out there, as far as the eye can see. Ain't another lump, but this one. And the road just happens to be like, I can't remember if it went around it or over it because I was surprised. It's like, this ain't normal. For 100 miles back and 100 miles forward, this ain't normal. So anyway, I've been able to find abnormal spots on this planet almost everywhere I go. I end up somewhere that I find something that's odd, or somebody later on will, we camped one night the day before we drove through Nevada, as a matter of fact, and it was still snowing in July when we were up there, and we were in the high Sierras. Didn't know that we were almost in Donner's Pass, so we camped the night with snow on the ground in July. Like 5 or 10 miles from Donner's Pass, there in California, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" We ended. It was really strange. So the times that I have found myself in places, no matter where I've been all this, it seems like on this planet, I've been able to find something interesting or a landmark or something. Anyway, and I think that's the intuitive side of me. Like, well, we could go down the road a little ways, or we could pull over here. Well, we could do no, let's pull over here, but we could pull over here. Okay, listen to that. So every time I have, it's usually, not 85% of the time it's been to the good. And maybe that other 15% is because I didn't take advantage of it or something like that. But anyway, um, but with this spaceship stuff and entities and myself feeling like I've been somewhere else on a regular basis, I can't prove a dime of it, but I do know what I feel. And it feels as real as sitting in this room, as Mandy Moo, I think, said earlier. And you can't shake it. And where it used to freak me out, like I said, I just take it for granted, but I do know this: there is a lot of activity going on, and there are a lot of good entities that are working on our side to try to get things right. So, my doing these videos like this is a question. Um, I know that these, on a higher level somehow, it's almost like these folks are doing these things like the Muppets and Harry Shearer and some of these other things. They're doing this on purpose. They are. They have to be. Otherwise, he wouldn't have got fired. So to bring this around to the topic, but in that, so my being here and saying this is see what they're doing. Let's keep an eye on these folks. Let's, as a watchman, we have to pay attention to what the creep guy's doing down the street, because, how many times has there been reports of children missing and that they find out that there's a house somewhere in the neighborhood and they find you know, women tied, chained, or whatever for years, nobody knew, locked in a bedroom. Police had looked in the neighborhood but didn't go knock on the door. Just strange stuff, right? So it happens right under our noses. But here's the thing: even to the negative spirits, you have to show respect, because if you're indifferent or think you're better than they are, that that's like challenging them. And just because we don't like some of these negative beings, not all of them want to destroy us. But there are factions that literally want to see us wiped off the face of this earth. And was listening to Miles Johnson and some other folks, and that the idea is that, and this is from Miles in England, in the UK, Miles Johnson of the Basis Project. And he said that there are those leaders in the UK that are already saying that by 2024, that there will be only 15 million inhabitants of Great Britain. And that means that 55 million people will have had to die if that's to happen. And he goes, we don't think they're going to make that, but we don't really know. So what's being touted as part of this thing are the shots and the RNA factors, the whatever they put out as fake snow all over the place. And as my daughter has said, they already know two people down there in Pensacola that they knew had died, within 2 weeks of getting the poke. And so, there will be the nose that says no, there, but there's also some other information that's supposed to come up by summer, that those people who got the needle may not show symptoms for 3 to 6 months, and that, oh, holy crap. So a lot of people are questioning now whether, and a lot of my dear friends have already had the shot. So, but I'm just going to say no until they say otherwise. But anyway, if they do succeed, if this is really what they want, and it was mentioned on a channel that I would not have expected the this answer to come out. And it's sort of related to the Q stuff, okay? So, but the person 107, if you know who he is, okay, if you have listened to Simon Parks and some Charlie Words, anyway. So, but he made this comment, and the other guy was a Navy SEAL in the interview, And they were talking, and they said that from the information that they knew from their friends and fellow Navy SEALs and people in the military and so forth, an underlying feeling, and that it was stated that they thought they were going to get rid of a bunch more of us, but they have there were higher beings that intervened to keep us from a mass massacre, that they've done this already. Now, that was interesting because on a totally another channel, totally different kind of circumstances, total different subjects, there was mention that, and I think I even did a video. Dante had spoke about that. There were those beings that within a couple of days or within a certain time that they were just going to wipe us all out, and that that there were negotiations going on and so forth. That channel got took down. But I remember making a video about it that in the next couple of weeks, something I think it was back in November or maybe October of last year. But what he said though, that there are other things that have intervened that kept us from more of us being wiped out than has already happened. Speaking about the vaccine, I mean the vid, right? So I was like, whoa, this is several months later, total, these two guys, as far as I know, aren't related, but they're talking about the same type of thing in a similar event. Just interesting. So, with the information that I get on my off planet visits, I come back and look at these things and go, somehow there's a bit of truth in this. I don't know how much of it, but somehow I know, maybe I was in a meeting or something, but somehow I know these two guys, they know something and I agree with them. And the energy seems right. And okay, so thank you to the good guys, to all y'all. There's a bunch of them working for us, so are working on our behalf. So, but anyway, I just wanted. I had no idea that I was going to get on here and do 2 hours. My dog's still outside, probably wondering where the hell I am. Um, Doug, can I offer just a tidbit of advice from an old dude that don't be afraid of it. Don't try to quantify it because it won't do you any good. You're um, I will be half the flesh and hopefully twice the man I've ever been. Just allow it. I tried quantifying things and you just can't do it. You have to let go. I mean, it will be what you're describing, but just let go. Just let go. That's the message from my brothers. Doug, let go. So that's that. It's not a it, somebody up there says they're picking on you, Doug. I don't know who it is, but they're like, we're picking on you. So for what that's worth, you know. But anyway, I love you guys. I do. And just know that there's, I guess, talking about Harry Shearer, it really does upset me because I've followed him for so long and have admired his abilities and characters and his way of, offbeat sense of humor and so forth. And it's just a shame, you know. It's just a shame that they're, oh my God, I'm going to say this. They blackballed him for playing black. For I love you, my friends. It's fun picking, yeah. So anyway, Teresa and everybody, um, be safe. And as I was talking with some other folks before, we have to. Um, there are people literally, picking at each other, but they're picking fights rather than just, having a little bit of fun. But there are folks like literally out there, in certain areas. And Mother Nature was talking about tonight earlier in her vid. And I was, and it's like there was even with, I don't know, the younger groups that should have a little bit more cohesiveness because they're the younger group, right? Um, in my day, in the 70s, we had rock and roll, and then we had disco, so everybody had something to focus on. And Night Fever, Night Divine. Anyway, there you go, Michelle. 107 is a fascinating fella. Yeah, he was in an interview with somebody I'd never heard before, and I caught it on an odd channel thingy. It's like it's on a anyway. But in listening to some of his comments, I was they he hit on certain things. I was like, I hear on these other channels, and I don't think these guys are talking, but they may be talking in a higher sense. You know what I mean? So it's really kind of amazing in that. But in that also, the what's going on is being very destructive, as a younger person is Mother Nature, and those folks that, not everybody in there is young like they are, but I'm one of the old codgers that come in and say hi and hang out a little bit. But how do you get a sense of what other people are thinking, like for an old geezer like me, if you don't listen to what the young folks are saying? You got to listen. And how else are you going to learn, right? So um but there's a lot of wisdom with a lot of young folks, but there are a lot of crazy folks out in that younger age, under 30 group kind of thing, I would say. And maybe even up to as far as 35, but up to 30, there's that group in there. Holy crappers. Some of them folks have got some really strange ways of thinking and odd. And, we all got that thing that we all, have a free will. We all have but some of these folks, I just got to say, and they're tearing each other up. I mean, you guys should be on the same side, and they're ripping each other to shreds. And it's not on Mother Nature, but I mean, as far as the younger set, where there should be more unity. And because now there are 51 ways of describing a sex, or whatever, if sex is what they're even going to call it anymore. um well, they'll probably try to outlaw that. Now, there's too much internet porn for that to happen. But anyway, it's too big a business. But the idea, though, that these folks don't respect each other, it's F you, everything is fuck, 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 fuck. You're bullshit. And you don't know what you're talking about. And rather than just being, um, having a differences of opinion, they're getting violent about some of this stuff. But anyway, um, 20 years after what, I'm fixing to go to bed too. Yeah, I got to go find my dog. I needed the show tonight. This was great time. You're welcome, Doug. See, there was another reason. When my spirits tell me go do a video, there's somebody out there that needs to have a whatever, and I'm just grateful that I listen. Um, Congress. Yeah, good night, family. And I'm going to say good night. Thank you, Teresa, um, as always. And to all of you, Michelle, Ed Hagel, all y'all, Elderberry. Um, so thank you for listening and paying attention. I know sometimes I get off on some really weird tangent thingies, but sometimes we have to discuss sub realities and what else might be going on. But there are so many signs coming from so many different places that even as myself, I got to talk a little bit about it amongst you guys, gals, folks. Um, y'all, in that maybe you're having similar things, or you know somebody else that's having similar things. And I'm not claiming abduction, although I do feel sometimes it's been like that. I'm not sure about being probed, but I have had things in my body that came out. I dug something out of my leg one time, way back in the day, and it bothered me. And then I found out later on through oh, what was that guy's name? Um, he had taken little devices out of several people through. He passed away several years ago. But when I saw the video of what that thing looked like, I was like, mine looked like a pencil lead stuck in my leg, and I thought that maybe it had. And I dug it out myself, and it was the weirdest little object. You know, this is back in the 80s. So, early 80s, actually, maybe 79, in a long time ago. So, yeah, I got to go get Duggar. But the idea, though, I haven't heard him bark, so that's a good thing. I've been leaving him out more just by himself so he can sit outside because it's nice right now. But anyway, so I've dug things out of my body that I looked at and went, that, you know, that don't look, what the hell is that? And I had saved this little piece, but then the house burnt down. So it's like, so I can't prove any of it. But I remember having, you know, alcohol and peroxide and a razor, and having, you know, had to turn my leg backwards because it was in my calf. And then I'd been having strange things. And now in looking at some stuff, I got a couple of things on my left arm that just one day they just appeared. And at times they get really agitated, and come to find out that there are certain folk who have been um, implanted for whatever reason, and it's usually on their left arm. And I just have looked at this thing, and I got a couple of them on my left arm, and I'm like, don't know where they come from. They're not cut. They're just these bumps. And then when I see these videos of these other people, and I go, some bishop, they don't. If mine don't look a little like them, so have I been tagged? I don't know, but I know I've got them on my left arm. Are they the same? I'm not sure, but all of these coincidences like, for example, when I did a video about Dante years ago, and then they published it on his channel, and that to me was like, we know who you are. And I was like, oh, holy shit, they know who I am, you know. And many people still come to my channel through an old video that was republished from Dante's channel. So I don't know. I can't honestly say yes, I'm Christus, and yeah, this is my. But it's just too interesting that I have many correlations to what some of these other folks do, and if that's the case, Dante typed his hat to me, and those folks, and republished my video. So that right there tells me that they know. So whether they're watching me all the time or keeping tabs with me, but there are some times when I feel like I know what's going on, and then a day or two later, Dante or somebody or somewhere, whatever came down with me when I got back here myself, it will show up. Sometimes, sometimes within a day. Sometimes I wake up and it's that day, or it's very rarely is it more than 3 days out. Um, Now there are times when I get this feeling like, you know, something's up. In a couple of weeks. There's going to be something's up. Okay, so you get this feeling that a couple of weeks, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, a few weeks you know, that in ahead. So that's as much um, information that is you'll get. It's coming up, you know. And then there are those times where you get back from wherever I'm at, and you get the feeling like I'm going to know what they were talking about here really soon. It's just, and so when I see some of the stuff in the news, like seeing Harry Shearer today, I was like, oh, so they were telling me last night that there's another one on the way, because I even said, who's next last night? And here we go. I wake up and there's Harry Shearer. So it's those little tiny little markers that just you scratch your head and go, well, I wonder. Michelle, you go. Everybody, I had an object I pulled out of my body. You too, Doug. Yeah, crazy. Morgellons, yes, I've had things like hairs come out of me that I've pulled out. But see, now I've been, I've worked around metal. Well, sometimes you get a metal shard from, say, a rotary, uh, um, a wire brush on a thing, then, and you might get a piece of it in your jeans, and later on you sit down, it'll stick you. Uh, Oh, I can only think of that scene from Return of the Mummy where they cut the bug out of his body. Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. I get something in my hands that I can feel magnetism like waves. Yep. And Travis, and one of the things too is that's sort of how I do card readings, in that there'll be an electricity in the card, sort of a little tingly. One could say it could be magnetism or whatever, but so I've obviously played with magnets, but so you hold, two magnets from sticking together, especially a strong one, and you can feel that energy that's pulling. Or if you turn them around and you try to put the magnets together and they slide off one way or the other. But now for me, having been, electrocuted a few times and played around and, getting zapped here and there and all that, the energy of magnetism does not feel the same as the energy of electricity in how I perceive it. So magnetism energy, I don't perceive the same way as other kinds of energy. Just thought I'd throw that out there. But anyway, you feel the cards. Yeah, it was a bug. I can't believe the things, aka feathers, I have to pull out or cut out of my body. Uh, Delaney, it could not be any of the reptilian. Um, but it could be angelic in some form of way, you know. Um, have you thought about that part? Um, Not necessarily a fallen angel, but and maybe and I mean this in a good way, maybe you're a crow woman, you know, in that, or was it raven? I get the two confused. So, but I have to go back. My book's not around. But what if it was Raven, I think, who's the keeper of the secrets or something? Um, and that if you want to send a message, you ask Raven. And it may be that, you have those traits like really strong, But anyway, all right, I'm getting hoarse. Duggar's outside. And as soon as I stand up, I'm going to have to pee. So I love you all. I do. Thank you for being who you are. And with this community, Doug, I'm glad that we could be here tonight. And somehow I always seem to like pick a topic that there's somebody out there that needs a little clarification. And I just want to humbly say I'm proud of the fact that they use me for the voice of this, and so we can have discussions. So I look forward to more, and hopefully that you know my folks upstairs will keep me informed as to what they feel you should be informed about. But the biggest thing is there's a lot of big stuff that is going to happen in the next few years. And we just need to learn how to adapt, smile about it, make jokes about it, and keep our wits about us. And above all, remember, as I know you do, we are spiritual beings. We always have been and we always will be. We will never be totally destroyed unless we are sent to the sun, kind of thing, and we get rezapped. But with that said, I continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn to accept and receive the healing, the knowledge, the wisdom, and them blessings from the universe. I continue to pray each and every day that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, all of your relatives, and all of your relations, past, present, and to come, will continue to learn to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. And in that rule of three, that'll bring me up to my knees. I always want to say, continue to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the blessings from the universe. And I continue to pray that you will continue sharing what you know with each other because you all have made a difference to each other. I'm just here as a facilitator. You all have healed each other over the time that I have known you. And I think that is fantastic. I see the growth within each and every one of you and how you share the knowledge already. And it's all good. Brian's proud of you, by the way. So until next time, my friends, keep it between the ditches. And, down here in South Georgia, we say that. Keep it between the ditches, my friends. And cheers, TTFN. Ween, Michelle. We love you always. Be safe.